This is the world of company secretaries. On this channel, you can watch interviews with company secretaries across the world. Make sure you subscribe and hit that bell icon. Sir, the first thing we ask all our guests, we want to ask you the same thing. How did you get to know about the company secretary course and what made you interested in this field?
Sir, I knew about the company secretaryship course even before the Institute of Company Secretaries was formed. At that time, it was GDCS. GDCS
Yes.
means Government Diploma in Company Secretaryship. And it was examinations were being conducted by the Department of Company Affairs. Department of Company Affairs means now MCA, that is Ministry of Corporate Affairs. I did not pass GDCS. I did proper course of Institute of Company Secretaries of India, and I passed the examination in the year 1973.
Okay. So that is very nice to know that many would not have been born, including me, when you're talking about the GDCS or when you did the course. So it's really amazing to learn from your rich experience. In fact, our guest Sudhakar sir of Reliance Industries, he spoke a lot about you. He told he was your trainee, and he also mentioned that there are a lot of life lessons he learned from you. Obviously, the CS work, but more than that, the life lessons. So we're very happy that we are talking to you now. Sir, now you told us about when you took the course and how you did CS. But before that, you were working with a Swedish company, Vulcan Level. So from that company, can you share few anecdotes or some experiences working for that Swedish company?
Sir, I worked as a company secretary nearly for about 20 years in multinational and Indian companies. But I always maintained my designation as company secretary. This was because to maintain the dignity of the profession and dignity of the profession of company secretaries and designation as such. CS education and CS education gives much more pleasure, much more exposure to different fields. But if you see the ultimately the compliance part, the your company law, your accounts, secretarial, legal, finance, everything is being taught by the Institute of Company Secretaries of India. But ultimately, it is not the Institute of Company Secretaries which is important. There are many more things which we teach the students. We are in different fields, we teach the students, but ultimately it is not the teaching which is important. It is the training part which is important, as you said, which Sudhakar also said. Sometimes the members of the Institute of Company Secretaries who are secretaries working as secretaries, they have different ideas in different fields. I worked as an entrepreneur wherever I worked. I did not work as a company secretary, though my designation was a company secretary, but I did not work as a company secretary. I always worked as a entrepreneur of the organization. As a company secretary, if you see, the company secretary has, as I said, knowledge about all the fields. In a company, there are many departments like business development, legal department, and sometimes their thinking is altogether different than each other. Rather, I can say opposite to each other. So it is the company secretary who can coordinate with all of them, who can work as a pivot in the wheel, and he knows what is good for the organization and what is bad for the organization. So therefore, even if the other persons are thinking in the opposite direction, he is the person who can coordinate. He can take a risk, calculated risk. He can think what is good for the organization and what is bad for the organization. That's why I say he is not the company, is not only the company secretary, he is the real entrepreneur of the organization. What else is required for an entrepreneur to be? Company secretaries teaches everything that we do it. So therefore, compliance part, everything is done by the company secretary. You made a mention about the Vulcan wall in the Swedish company I had been working. At that time, I was not secretary. But as I said, I was entrepreneur everywhere I worked. In Swedish company, that Vulcan wall, if I remember, that was in the year 1960s. And in the year 1960s, that Swedish company was engaged in import of machinery and basically setting up dairy industry. At that time, the Delhi Mill scheme, Jammu Dairy, Karnal Dairy, these all were set by me, by not me, by my company. Me means my company, and because I had an affiliation with all the companies I worked, I'm using the word me and mine. When I'm using the word for the institute also, that I'm using we had done it means the institute has done it. So this is because I always had been thinking as an entrepreneur of the organization. You asked me to give some example as to what I did in the as an entrepreneur in Swedish company. Basically, I can give you some 2, 3 examples what how an entrepreneur thinks. So, for example, as I said, in Volcan Lawal, we were engaged in the dairy manufacturing. In Delhi Mill scheme, we had installed 2 machines of bottle filling. Bottle filling means milk bottle filling machines. And our responsibility was to hand over the plant in running condition as a on the turnkey basis. One of the machines was working very well. The other machine was not working well. So therefore, as a professional, what you will do? As a professional, what you will do is, what can we do? We have not been able to hand over the plant, so how can I ask for the money? But an entrepreneur thinks a mile ahead. So as an entrepreneur, my duty was not to find out something more, to do something more so that the money of the company is released. At that time, it was about 25,000 rupees. Now it may be about 25 crore rupees. I do not know how much, but 25,000 rupees was too high a sum at that time. Means it was a plant cost. So I visited DMS, Delhi Mill scheme. I saw my 7 engineers sitting there, and there was a workshop also there. So I asked them, what is wrong with the machines? So show me how a machine is running. They started the machine. The machine started working. One machine was breaking the bottles. I said, don't start it on this thing power. Do it manually. Rotate the machine manually. And I noticed at 2 places, the spindle appeared to be a little longer and was twisting the rubber plug on the top. So I said, these are the 2 points where the bottle is breaking. But my engineers were not accepting my version. They say, no, these are all original parts. There cannot be anything wrong. I said, why don't you try these 2 spindles? There cannot be any wrong. But anyhow, they took out those two spindles and found and compared with the others. Others were KY45 and these were KY47. That means these spindles were about 2 centimeters longer. It did not take them any time. Just went to the lathe machine, grinded the spindles, and reduced to size, and in a few minutes time, the machine started. So the example, the moral of the story, it is only a story, but the story means that something is more to be decided, something more is to be thought by an entrepreneur as compared to a professional. So I was not only a professional, I was an entrepreneur all the time. I give another example. I don't know. I'll give you as much example as you want. I give another example. We had set up Jammu Dairy in that company only. I say in Jammu Dairy, there was a big machine to be shifted from Jammu to from Pathankot to Jammu, and at the time the railway line was only up to Jammu. So for shifting those heavy machines, I was given an estimate about 17,000 rupees, and 17,000 was equal to the cost of the machines. So that was too high a figure for me, only for shifting, because they said a crane will go from Delhi and they will charge about 70 rupees per hour, and total they calculated it will be about 17,000 rupees. I said, okay, let me just see it. And they also rather insisted that you are not approving the expenditure. Why don't you go and see it? So early in the morning, I reached Pathankot and I saw really there were 3 big pieces. One was about 8 tons and another was about 4 tons. And it was really difficult to shift them to Jammu. Then I saw at the same platform some power transformers were lying. Power transformers were equally heavy. I asked every people how these transformers are shifted. Who carries them? They said these are Punjab State Electricity Board and they have their own trawler. So I visited Punjab State Electricity Board. I asked them whether they can lend their 18-wheeler trawler. They said yes, we'll charge you 250 rupees. I agreed to it. So I hired one trawler of this thing 18-wheeler and two trucks at the rate of 110 rupees per two trucks. I brought them to the railway station, and railway station now it was a question of loading and unloading. Loading was no problem because from there that was up to narrow gauge is there up to Joginder Nagar. So from meter gauge to narrow gauge, the material is required to be shifted. So there were about more than 10 cranes there, and huge heap of means iron rods, iron ropes. So I asked them how much you will charge on loading. They said railways will charge about 30 rupees. So 30 rupees I paid, and another 30 rupees I paid to the crane crew. They gave me a few iron ropes to tie up. I loaded them, I got them loaded and sat in the truck itself. We reached this thing, Jammu. And after reaching Jammu, now it was a question of unloading. And unloading means it was not a question of how much strength you have. It was a question as to how do you tackle it. So a simple way, I asked both the truck drivers because the machines were too heavy, about 1 feet thickness, unbreakable machines. I asked the two truck drivers that they should put their trucks in such a way that their backside touch each other. So they did so. Then I asked them to tie up both the machines together. So both the machines of both the trucks were tied together. And then I asked the drivers, you move to your direction. So one moved to the one direction and the other moved to the one to the east and other to the west. So ultimately, both the machines came down without any crane. Now, unloading of the second machine was not a difficult task because that was on a simple platform. I asked those 6 persons to tie up the machines which are lying on the earth to the other machines, asked the driver to move it, and he moved it, and the other machine also came up. General Manager Mr. Kak was there. I asked him to sign the document. He signed the receipt of the material. I came back to Pathankot on the same truck. And night train, I took it, and it cost me about only not more than 500 rupees as against 17,000 rupees. So this I say, yes. Sir, I'm not able to hear it. Doesn't matter. I could not hear it. Doesn't matter.
That is because you thought like an entrepreneur and not just an employee.
Correct, sir.